Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Brewers and Dodgers gave us an absolute classic in Game 1 of the NLCS. Plus, the Falcons handed the Bills their second straight loss, and the Titans gave Brian Callahan the boot.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Milwaukee Brewers had the bases loaded with 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth, down just a run. And Bryce Terang strikes out swinging after the Brewers battled back from down 2-0 in the bottom of the ninth. Brandon Snide from our Locked On Brewers postcast and the Locked On Packers squad show joins me now. Brandon, this Brewers team has done this all season. They have fought and scrapped and clawed all season. It just didn't come the right way for them in Game 1 here.
Tough one, Peter. But you know what? It showed me a lot about this Milwaukee Brewers team. I think they're heavily the underdogs. You know, depending on where you look. Certainly, our friends at FanDuel would agree that they're the underdogs in this series. But the Brewers proved. I mean, Blake Snell pitched the best game he's ever pitched in the postseason. 10 strikeouts, matches a career high for him. He faced the minimum through 8 innings. It looked like the Brewers were left to die in this one, but they battled back. You know, they got into the ninth inning. They got a guy on base, even with 1 out. They were able to put some stress on the opposing pitching, on the opposing defense. Just couldn't come through in the clutch. We've seen it all year long that this team fights till the end, and unfortunately just came up short. Bryce Terang with a moment that I'm sure he would love to have back, staying in that box, maybe taking that one off of the off the thigh, off the leg there to bring home the would have been the game tying run. But it also shows you, Peter, how important the top of that ninth inning was, right? The Brewers walking in a run. Abner Uribe, who just 2 days ago had a 2-inning save against the Chicago Cubs in the NLDS. He walks home a run, walks Mookie Betts. That gave the Dodgers a 2-0 advantage. And had that not happened, right? It's obviously easy to look in, 2020, hindsight 2020, but the game would have been tied. It's just the little things that the Brewers usually do well, they didn't do tonight.
Quick turnaround here, too. I mean, the biggest playoff win in what, 40 years for the Milwaukee Brewers on Saturday night. They have to turn right around and play on Monday night. I mean, was this any signs of hangover here? And all of a sudden they just got their butts in gear with the game on the line here? Or is this just you tip your cap to Blake Snell and try and do better in Game 2? Yeah,
I think you got to look at Blake Snell and you got to tip your cap, right? And he was automatic tonight for the LA Dodgers. I mean, fantastic. I mentioned it. The 10 strikeouts tonight from start to finish. I honestly, Peter, I was shocked that they allowed him to not.
I was going to ask you about it. What about that decision to pull him in the ninth?
I understand why, right? He was already hit over 100 pitches, but he was absolutely on fire. He was nailing the corners. He had the edges. His changeup was amazing. He was mixing pitches up. The Brewers didn't look comfortable whatsoever at the plate this evening. I don't think it's necessarily anything, to do with the Saturday night game for this Brewers team. This is something they've done all year, right? They're a scrappy bunch. They live off of this type of environment. They live off of the quick turnaround. I was actually happy that it was a quick turnaround, to be honest with you, because you had that momentum from Game 5. You had that home crowd, ready, anxious, excited to get going right away in Game 1 tonight on Monday night, but they were just unable to get those timely hits when they needed them. And the ninth inning right there proved it. But I think this was a good test for this Brewers team. I know we're talking about a test, and it's the NLCS, and you're already into the postseason, deep into the postseason. But I think it showed this team, and not that this team needed anything to be shown to them, but it showed them that they can compete with a $350 million payroll that is the LA Dodgers. And it was really one mistake. Chad Patrick, who, by the way, was perfect, literally perfect through the postseason up until that pitch to Freddie Freeman. He hadn't given up a hit. He hadn't given up a run prior to that 4 1/3 innings pitched, prior to that Freddie Freeman solo home run there. So again, a couple of things that, go the Brewers' way. The ball bounces a different way. We're talking about a Brewers 1-0 lead. However, I will say this, Freddie Peralta on the mound for the Brewers tomorrow, that's a must-win game for Milwaukee. And you cannot go back to L.A. Remember, their formats are 2-3-2, so they'll play Game 2 in Milwaukee. They'll play 3 in L.A. You have to win Game 2 for the Brewers.
Give me one player, if they're going to do it, that can key that Game 2 win.
Freddie Peralta. You're going to have a hard time against this Dodger, pitching staff from starters to bullpen. It's got to be Freddie Peralta. He didn't have a great start in Game 4 in Chicago against the Cubs. This is why Freddie Peralta is your ace of your staff, Peter. This is why you give him the money. This is why you put the burden of being that ace on your roster is for moments like this. You're home at American Family Field. You're in a must-win situation. I don't say he's got to go out there and match what Blake Snell did today with 8 innings pitched and allowing 1 hit and 10 Ks, but he's got to go out there and anchor this Brewers team and get them going for a win tomorrow. And it's got to be Freddie Peralta. The pitching overall today was great, other than that Abner Uribe walking in a run. But I think it starts with Freddie Peralta, and the crowd and the offense will feed off of that.
Yeah, the Brewers hitters probably happy to see anybody but Blake Snell for Game 2. Thanks, Brandon. Stay up to date all year on the Milwaukee Brewers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Brewers on your favorite podcast app. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Falcons took down the Bills. Before we get to that, the Seattle Mariners destroyed the Blue Jays in Game 2 of the ALCS. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits. However, I want to bet in the moment with player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. The Mariners are now up 2-0 on the Blue Jays after dominating Game 2 in Toronto.
That was an absolute beatdown. This is Tony Gonzalez, host of the Locked On Mariners podcast here. It didn't start out that way. Well, kind of did with Julio's 3-run home run, but the Mariners immediately gave that lead up. Things get tied 3-3. Logan Gilbert just did not have it at all. But from that point forward, it was all Mariners. Jorge Polanco continues his absolute tear in the postseason with a 3-run bomb. Josh Naylor plays that on with a 2-run bomb. The Mariners get into double-digit territory in this one. 10-3, the final score. They take both games at the Rogers Center and now go back to Seattle with 3 opportunities to win 2 games to clinch their first ever trip to the World Series. And they got George Kirby, Luis Castillo, and Brian Wu on tap to make that happen. Could be a very fun week, very historic week in Seattle Mariners history coming up. We'll talk to you on the Locked On Mariners podcast here in a few hours.
A former pair of top pick quarterbacks went at it, the Bears and the Commanders on Monday night.
The Chicago Bears win ugly, but by God, do they find a way to win. This game against the Washington Commanders felt like it was all about the Bears' self-inflicted wounds more than anything the Washington Commanders were doing to them, with dropped passes, penalties, a blocked field goal, missed passes from Caleb Williams, and yet after the bye week, the offensive line looks much improved. The pass rush looks improved with some more blitzing from Dennis Allen. And DeAndre Swift comes through in a major way that Bears fans have been looking for not only all season, but really dating back to last season. And it feels like Ben Johnson has this team firing in a way where they don't get fazed by the mistakes that would really drag them down in the past. And to be able to go blow for blow with a team like the Commanders that are top 10 on offense and defense and still find a way to win tells you the direction this Bears team is headed. A 3-game winning streak with a light schedule still to come. And all of a sudden, this team's going to start making some noise this season.
And over in the NBA, the Dallas Mavericks started Cooper Flagg at point guard in a massive lineup versus the Jazz in a preseason game.
We saw our first Mavericks conundrum in the Mavs game against the Utah Jazz in preseason. Anthony Davis, 25 points, 6 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks in under 25 minutes, and shows just how good he can be. This was a reminder game like, hey, this is a top 10 player in the NBA. The problem is it came with him at the 5 largely, and that's a lineup the Mavericks are going to have to go to at some point during the season because the offense just looks so much better when they are spread out in that way, when Anthony Davis is the 5, when he's the only big man that's rolling, because they have more shooters out there, they have more ball handlers out there. And that means Lively and Gafford are going to have to sit. Lively only plays 7 minutes in this game. We're still waiting to hear what happened with him or if they just decided to sit him in this. Cooper Flagg, 21 minutes for him. He got 11.7 boards, an assist, 2 steals, 2 blocks. He is just consistent all around the board. Struggled with his jumper, 3 of 13 from the field, but shows that he can impact the game all around. It's just like every single game he gives you the exact same thing, and that is not what a rookie does at all. Just look at the other side of the Ace Bailey. He goes out with an injury as well, but Cooper Flagg showing his consistency, showing that he can impact the game and be an 18-year-old rookie that is going to impact winning for this team.
The Falcons handed the Buffalo Bills their second straight loss on Monday night. Locked On Falcons host Aaron Freeman reacted to the major victory.
So again, hater, doubter, skeptic, whatever you want to call me, I did not believe, right, in this team's likelihood of winning the game. I thought they thought they would play a competitive game. But, if you listen to Monday morning's episode on your audio field, Sunday nights on your YouTube feed, basically I spent that episode kind of lowering the expectations for this team because I was not a believer, right? And, they I'm not going to say they've made a believer out of me, but they've certainly, they got me listening to Justin Bieber, if you understand the pun, a little bit more. I'm going to be bumping some Justin Bieber because I'm a believer, or whatever nonsense I'm getting into here, guys. It's gonna be a ridiculous show, guys. I'm just letting you know. Still riding high, so strap it. But this was as impressive a win that we've seen from this team in a very long time. Right. The first half performance of this team to go up 21-7 against this Bills and play, I'm not going to say a perfect first half, but probably as close to perfection as you can realistically expect to play for this Falcon team going up against this Bills team in the first half. Pretty much not everything, but like 95% of the things that the Falcons wanted to go their way on both offense and defense went their way on offense and defense in the first half. Now, they let the Bills back in the game to a certain extent in the second half, but they were able to, put their boot on the throat when the time came in this one. And, part of the reason why I was sitting here lowering expectation was because I was nervous about building this game up. We talked about the potential of this game kind of being sort of the coming out party, the statement game, the declaration game for the Atlanta Falcons this season if they could go out there and pull off this upset. But, because looking at this matchup and it's like, yeah, the Bills are a top 3 team for a reason. And the Falcons have been a middle of the pack team for a reason. And for me, a lot of it was, fans tend to get too high off of the wins and too low off the losses. And coming off that Washington win, it felt like, this Falcon team was probably going to come back down a little bit to earth, especially with this going up against this Bills team there's a reason, as I said, why they have been consistently one of the best teams in the league. And we didn't quite see that. And it's funny because I think coming off that I think it was a Washington game. I had a Locked On Falcons insider basically, hit me up being like, you know what? I think this Falcon team could be a contender with Philadelphia, who he was perceiving as the sort of the class of the NFC at that time. And I was just kind of like, all right, man, like, again, this is what I'm talking about, where it just feels like every time the Falcons win, people are like, oh, we're never going to lose a game again. And anytime the Falcons lose, the opposite is true, where it was like, we're never going to win a game ever again. And it's like, to me, this is the one time where the Falcons win a game, right? Where it feels like often fans treat like, oh, we're a Super Bowl contender. It's like, oh, this is the one time where the Falcons, again, I'm not going to make that statement, but like, this is the one time where you can, puff up your chest and say like, yeah, I think this team legitimately can be a contender because of how impressive a performance this was against this Bills team, taking down one of the best teams in the NFL. And, I'm sure there'll be plenty of think pieces, suggesting that the Bills maybe aren't as good as we thought they were, right? And all that stuff, who they've won, the quality of wins and all that stuff. And again, I'll let other people write those think pieces. But all that I know from the Falcons' perspective, they took down one of the best teams in the league with one of the best quarterbacks in the league, with Sean McDermott going up against Sean McDermott, a proven top 10 coach. This Bills team is resilient. We talked about the stats all week long. This is a team that does not often lose 2 games in a row. They win 75% of their games coming off of a loss. And, not only are we going to get the think pieces about the Bills being, maybe not as good as overrated or whatnot, but now we're going to get those think pieces that, hey, this Falcons team is legit. And, we might be writing some of those think pieces here on this podcast. And so, I'm not ready to go like, oh, this team is a contender as of this game. But like, to me, this is kind of the first step that gets that ball rolling. If they can not just do this one thing, but you can start to string together these multiple games, multiple wins, start to stack those wins. That's what turns you into a contender. And so to me, if this is the first step in, 3 steps, right? Like we kind of talked about it on Monday, where it's just like, if Raheem Morris is that guy, it's not just beating the Bills, but it's beating the Bills and then following up with a win against the 49ers and following up against a win against the Dolphins, et cetera, et cetera. And so my hope is that, the Falcons, this is the start of the Falcons proving that one insider correct, right? He, in my eyes, I thought he was wrong. He was just early, right? He was just earlier than the rest of us. And I'm like, we'll follow that person's lead. And maybe this is the beginning of this team being a contender. And that's the conversation we're having. And like, I did not have any confidence or I had some optimism, don't get me wrong. But like, it was very, very small. It was like an 8% chance that they beat the Bills. And like, I just didn't have any confidence going into this game. And again, like, I'm not ready to be like, we're one of the best, because again, we got a lot of games to be played over the course of the season, still 12 more games. And to make the playoffs, you got to win 7 of those games. And so we got, at least 7 more wins, that this Falcon team needs to pull off before, we can declare this team actual playoff team.
Stay up to date all year on the Atlanta Falcons by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Falcons on your favorite podcast app. Coming up, Brian Callahan out as the head coach of the Titans. Brian Callahan didn't even make it to Halloween in Tennessee. The Titans, their fans couldn't be more excited. Locked On Titans host Tyler Rowland celebrated Callahan's dismissal and explained why this desperately needed to happen.
Brian Callahan is fired. The Tennessee Titans have finally made the move that we have all been waiting on, firing a terrible, one of the worst, maybe the worst head coach in NFL history. We're going to talk about why this needed to happen right now, why I warned you that the Titans would do it this week just a couple of weeks ago. We'll talk about what's going to happen next, who's going to be the interim head coach, who are the head coaching candidates who should be the next head coach for the Tennessee Titans. Plus, this is all about helping Cam Ward, because you have fans out there turning on Cam Ward when it's obvious that this team is completely lost and it's not the rookie quarterback's fault. Before we get into all of the madness, do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. But with that being said, folks, this is a move that absolutely had to happen. Brian Callahan was maybe the worst head coach that I have ever seen at any level of football in my entire life. I mean, ultimately, he ends up going 3-19 in his career. And I saw a stat from Teron Davenport from ESPN. The Tennessee Titans offense has scored the least amount of points through 6 weeks of any team since 1985. When you are an offensive-minded head coach and your offense and your rookie quarterback are absolutely despicable. And what's funny is this news came out right after I got done going through the film of Week 6's loss to the Las Vegas Raiders. And I could not believe the incompetence that I saw all over the tape on the offensive side of the ball. The offensive line has no idea what they're doing. The wide receivers are running the wrong routes. No one is open. The quarterback has no answers for pressure. And listen, you don't want to believe me. You don't want to buy into what I'm saying. Think about Kurt Warner, who was on Twitter on Monday morning talking about Cam Ward is just throwing the ball at the ground at some point because he has no answers for the pressure. No one's open. You have a Hall of Fame quarterback. You have former NFL quarterbacks all over the place like Dan Orlovsky and Kurt Benkirk and all these different people saying exactly what I'm trying to tell you to. The offense was a disgrace. There was nothing that they could do. There was no one open for Cam Ward. The offensive line doesn't know what they're doing. The wide receivers don't know what they're doing. And then think about the in-game decision-making that we had to sit through for the first month of the season. Think back to the Denver game before halftime where you got a wide receiver screen and nobody turns around to catch it. Think about all of the pre-halftime time management decisions that got botched here. Brian Callahan not only had no idea what he was doing schematically on offense, but he also had no idea how to lead a football team. And I think the most damning thing that happened was Jeffrey Simmons and Cam Ward, the two leaders of the football team, both said in their press conferences after the game, we had our worst week of practice all year this week. How do you come off your only win of the year when the team should be as energized and as fired up and as motivated as they've been all season since the beginning of the year, and you have your worst week of practice? You have your worst day of practice all season on the Thursday practice? How is that even possible? So once again, the team had tuned out Brian Callahan. You spent all season talking about penalties, talking about playing clean, talking about not turning over the ball. And then the team has no idea what they're doing. They commit 1 million penalties to start the season. There's turnovers galore. Everything that Brian Callahan had to say all season long, completely ignored by his players. Completely ignored. So I said it on yesterday's show. I don't know what else the Tennessee Titans needed to see. A team that made the garbage, terrible Las Vegas Raiders look like an all-pro world-beating team. Completely unacceptable. This had to absolutely happen right now.
And finally, for the first time since 1997, the Bears and Commanders actually saw the same quarterbacks from their last meeting. Remember last year, the Hail Mary game, Tyreek Stevenson, jawing with the fans. Well, Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams were back for the rematch. It's been 13 games and roughly a dozen rebuilds since Gus Frerotte and Eric Kramer squared off, which feels like we're talking about a different sport entirely. For two franchises that treat stability like it's a rumor, just having a repeat QB matchup might be the rarest stat of all. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, can the Brewers respond in Game 2 of the NLCS? So at least until tomorrow, stay Locked On Sports Today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.